All right, welcome back. So this is part 2 of assembling high voltage number 10. Last time we aligned the wing, the tail, got all the controls set up, put half the fuselage on, set up the motor thrust. So that's pretty much ready to put the other half of the fuse on. So kind of off camera, I just took it out of jig and slid the other fuselage side on. So it's pretty much ready to go. It'll slide right together. You'll see how I do it. Like I said, I'll use some epoxy to tie the formers together, and then I will CA a few spots, and I'll tape this thing up in the jig to kind of hold it in place overnight to really get it ready. So this will probably be a short video, probably be quick. We'll just go through a few things. And yeah, so all right. So I put it back in the jig, and again, I'm using my little height gauge, if you want to call it, to the marks that I have put in it, right, just to make sure everything's back in the same spot where you wanted it. This is kind of getting down to the final assembly where things are going to have to be in place where they are. So you really got to measure once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5, whatever it takes. Again, incidence meters are excellent way to do it. Height gauges, rulers, and also nothing beats your eye as well to double check everything. All right, where's my tape measure? All right, so what I will do is check the thrust line too as well. If you noticed on my thrust mount, I have an 8-inch ruler here clamped to it, so it's perfectly parallel to the spinner. And I'll just double check it. So just slightly more than 22 and a half. And just 22 and 5/8 roughly. Let me just move the incidence meter. I get a better measurement. All right, again, this is what works for me, right? There are many ways to skin this cat, and what's nice is there's a lot of folks putting out pictures and videos on how to kind of showing how we do things. Hopefully, it inspires you, gives you some ideas. Again, there's many ways to do this. My way is the way it works for me, but there are different ways to do it. So if you have any other ideas and stuff, please go ahead and share. Right? I think we all get a benefit out of sharing. So that's 22 and 11/16. I just want to double check it. All right, 22 and 9/16. So we're about an 1/8. A little more than I want, but also let me double check the center line. All right, so again, I got the laser going right down the center of the piece, picking up the piece in the back, right, my tail post piece, going right through the center of the bulb. All right, so I want it to take just a little bit out. Looking for about a 1/16 of an inch. Still a little too much. Pretty close, almost there. Let's see. Yeah, 22 and 5/8 and 22 and 11/16. All right, there's my 16th. So I'm pretty happy with it. Again, check that alignment. And again, the other thing to do is really just visually look at stuff too. As you get it set, take a look at it to look right. One of my challenges, I work in a probably 10 by 10 room, so I can't always back up to get some more perspective on it. So if you have a bigger shop where you're able to take things and get some distance, it's always better because you get a little bit better visual look at it. Sometimes I miss stuff because I'm just in too close here. But just looking down the fuse, making sure I like the alignment, how it looks. I know I have trial fit this piece before the two halves were together, so I know I'm pretty close. So we're going to just trial fit it right now to make sure I'm happy with the gaps and how the formers line up. These fuselage halves were made in a jig that were marked identically on both sides, so the formers should line up. It seemed to line up when I mocked them up dry. So let's just check it. Joe's gonna come back a little bit. Pretty close, not bad. Front's lined up, now we're just going to make sure the back is where we want it. Pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with the alignment. It's pretty close. I got a little bit of a gap here in front. That's just a bad cutout, but it's not too bad. It's all manageable stuff. Just making sure this all fits up tight and nice. Pretty happy with that. All right. All right, so it looks pretty good fit up. Alright, so the incidence is dead center. So the stab is perfectly at 0, the wing is at 0, and I know the thrust is at 0. So we're pretty much ready to go here. Alright, what I'll do is I will use epoxy, and I like to use masking tape to kind of hold everything in place. Squeeze it together. The epoxy I'm using is 3M Scotch Weld 6310. It's like a multi-purpose composite adherence. Works pretty well. Had good success with it. I do like the fact that it mixes itself and it has the tip. Makes it a lot easier to administer. So as you see, I don't know if you can see it. Let's see. And if you pull it through, it goes through a series of chambers which mixes the resin and the epoxy. All right. Just putting epoxy on all the formers. Okay. Getting the main former here. And I'm just attaching that wing former. Get a good amount around the motor mount, so you get a good attachment in here and there. All right, here we go. I do want to take that back. Hold on. I do want to. So what I'll do is I'll put some of this epoxy on the wing connection just a little bit, just to make sure we got that seam good. And what I like to do is take a Q-tip and get rid of any excess that's not required. the excess as much as you can and get it into the joint. All right. Okay, just got to get back past the rear horn. All right. Nice top fit. It's nice and tight. And I like to really pull it right around that former. Alright, so it's a little tight on the seam here, and we'll just pop the seam open. Just running a razor blade through helps that out a lot. Making sure the bottom is nice and tight as well. Nice and tight there. Just gonna look at that for a second. Yeah, I got some epoxy that shot out. All right. Now I have to pull. I'm just going to pull that nose ring tight in a minute. Then we get to get everything else in position. What I do is I line the bottom seam up. It's a little hard to see because of where it sits in the jig, but I can feel it. And again, I know this fuse fits together pretty good because it came out of the jig together. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty happy with this fit up so far. Yeah. Let's just take a look down from this side. Alright, we'll just have a piece coming over the ring a little bit. Just going to trim it so it falls in. Final fit up here. Yeah, just squeezing it to the ring. Good, nice. So, all right, pretty good. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll kind of just go over with some CA to kind of tack the top seam in a couple spots just to make sure I'm completely happy with it. Make sure the gaps are minimal. Almost, you want no gaps. You want to make sure you don't have a high and low, because then you have to sand that out. Not the end of the earth, but it's better not to sand it out because then you have to refinish those spots. So anywhere you got any extra epoxy, a little rag with some alcohol on it, get it off. Especially on the exterior finish, because then you'll have to get it off, sand it off later. It becomes harder to do. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tack the fuse in a few spots. The seam, oh man, the bottom seam is pretty much on, so that's good. So I'll go through. I'm gonna tack it in a few spots, get the seam where I'm happy with it. Then I'm gonna go work on the tail, glue the stab in place, or at least tack the stab in place, and then final glue it in place. I do have one more thing to check before, again, is, let's see, what are we doing here? Okay, 9/16. And 5/8. All right, perfect. Again, outboard, outboard side smaller, inboard side I like to create line tension. But just guarantee that the plane stays up. Just one last thing I do want to check before I glue the stab in is do we have any rubbing in the horn in the back? Nope. No, so that's good. Make sure it's down in the jig nicely. All right. And this seam doesn't have to be actually perfect, because it always does need a little work. So you always do got to hide the seam a little bit. But you don't want it where it's grossly misaligned. You want it to look nice. The tighter the seam, the better. Any filler and stuff just adds unnecessary weight. So get it in there. I'm usually good for gluing my fingers to the fuselage. At least once in this evolution. Yeah, so I'm going along around here. Some of the feedback I did get from some folks, so thanks for those who replied, gave me some feedback. One of the things was if I could get better close-ups. So I'm going to look at how can I do that and achieve it with my setup I have here. Kind of a low-budget setup. I use my Microsoft Surface computer, its camera, and that's kind of what I've been using. It seems to work on a tripod on my bench. But I'm going to work on trying to do some other things. Maybe I can, be able to use a second camera or lens or something to be able to get a close-up. Sometimes the close-up details are what people want to see. So we'll work on that. Just waiting for this to set up. So, just a little bit about me. How did I get into model aviation, or how did I get here? As a little boy, my father was into model airplanes. He flew control line back in the 50s and 60s. Then he turned to RC in the 70s at some point. And then he quit flying for quite a while, and then he had children. He had my older sister and me and my younger sister. So there's three of us. And as I got older, I used to go down into the basement and stand on, sit on the stairs, and I used to look at all these airplanes that were being built. They were all hanging there on the walls, and it was cool. And I'd ask them, hey, we should finish some of these airplanes. And, oh, yeah. And then I was probably about 8 years old or so, and I got a Cox Cosmic Racer U-control plane for Christmas from one of my uncles. And that kind of started all over again with my father. We never actually flew the Cox plane, but we did go out and buy. My first plane was a Swordsman. He showed me how to build it with an 049. I remember it was cool. It had a Black Widow 049 on it. I was able to achieve flight pretty quickly, believe it or not. I flew level pretty well with it. And didn't tear it up too bad, maybe only a couple times. And I started to progress the 15 size planes, like a Flight Streak Junior, and I started flying Flight Streaks. And my father flew combat back in the 50s and 60s, so he had some wings. So I flew a couple of Nemesises and Voodoo we had. So I learned to fly on that stuff, and I could pretty much do some loops, fly inverted. That's kind of how I got started. I did get the opportunity to fly a Mustang Stunter once, and I thought it was cool the way it would loop nice because of the flaps. And then I kind of got into RC for a while, and then around 17, 18, 19, I had other things on my mind. So I really didn't get back into flying. And I was a pretty good RC pilot. I flew some really nice pattern ships. I was really into ducted fans. At F-86, a jet hangar hobby F-86, and F-4 Phantom. Really enjoyed that. I flew a lot at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn. which anybody has been there, old retired Naval Air Station, pretty cool place to fly. Huge runway and pretty much all the room you need. But anyway, let's fast forward to about 2014 time frame. So my dad's cleaning out the garage, and my oldest son Joe is over there helping him. And he says, "Papa, what's all these planes up here?" Right? My father still had many of the control line planes and RC planes, and my father started telling him. And my father then goes on the internet and finds out that they still fly Flushing Meadow Park, and he can fly electric, which he thought was cool. So he starts to fly again because of my oldest son. And my dad tells me he's flying again. He says, Joe, why don't you come out and fly at Flushing Meadow, have a fun fly? So I said, all right. So I go out there and I fly. He's got a flight streak for me, so I fly that. But what happens to me there is I see this guy flying this plane. It says Impact Master on the wing, and I had seen some guys fly, and so I'm watching this individual fly, and I watch him come crashing down to the ground. Heading down to the ground. Right, driving it down to, and at about 4 feet, just turns inverted in the corner. And I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool, right?" And I watched him fly the pattern, and from that point forward, I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool. That's something I want to do." And that's where I meet Will DeMauro there. I meet Bob Lampione there, and the guy flying is this guy Jose Modesto. And those in the stunt world know Jose, and they know that's my flying buddy. But I watched him fly, and it kind of got me into like, this is really cool. Also got the opportunity to meet Cena, as he's famously known as the artist. And those who don't know Cena is one of the people who really designs a lot of paint schemes for people. Really just a great person. He spent some time helping me out. He actually gave me a Vegas wing, and I started building some planes. So I entered my first contest. The guys there, Will's like, "Oh, why don't you have a contest tomorrow? Why don't you come?" So I go there, and I have a 4Runner that I had for years. I got it back in 1989, and I finished it up. And I put some paint on it, put LA-46 on it, got it to run. And the day before the contest, I go out into practice. And I hadn't flown the pattern yet. I could do some of the maneuvers. So then I'm like, all right. So I entered beginner, and I learned the pattern the day before, the afternoon before. I did my first full pattern